Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. It is time once again to change anime seasons. The fall 2024 season is upon us as we're recording. New shows have just started pouring in. But go to the glorioblog.com and look for our first look post on that. We'll talk about it on the podcast next time, because this episode, we have some unfinished business with the summer 2024 season. So for this episode, we're going to give our final thoughts on the shows that we watched, including some that technically did not air this season, but we'll get to that in a minute. So to introduce everybody, I'm Jel. I'm joined by Iro.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet.
Still with us. We're joined by G.
What's good, everybody?
And we are joined by Artemis.
Hello, I am here to bring you good taste. You're welcome.
Yes,
Enjoy.
Finally. Every now and then we need that. Yes. Yeah. So, snappy intro here, wasting no time because we've got a lot to talk about. Mm-hmm. Like I said, quite a few shows, but we wanted to start with something that we've been threatening all season.
Yes.
Iro and G, you have been hitting the backlog and watching the Vision of Escaflowne and Outlaw Star, which you also completed this season.
Yes.
So
extremely timely.
The backlog is for slow seasons.
What years did these air? Like,
oh dear.
Outlaw Star was 98.
Right. That was
yeah.
Was
96. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I thought it was like earlier 90s, but I guess it doesn't really make that big a difference. Anyway. So yes, we've been threatening to talk about these shows, and we thought we'd kick things off by getting your thoughts now that you've wrapped them up. So you guys can take it away.
Yeah. I'm actually going to improvise here, like on just off the cuff. Iro, do you think it's maybe appropriate if we talk about Outlaw Star first of these two?
Sure. Yeah, because that's how we watched them.
Yes.
Okay.
Was Outlaw Star came before Escaflowne.
Also, just for better or worse, Outlaw Star, less to say, both good and
true.
Bad. So, Outlaw Star is a show I had seen before, back when it had aired on Toonami. It was one of those one of those Toonami era shows, kind of in there with your Gundam Wings and Dragon Ball Zs, and of course Cowboy Bebop. Outlaw Star is probably primarily notable because it was very obviously a show that Toonami found that was like, this is kind of like Cowboy Bebop. Let's throw this on.
Yet it came before Bebop, like very slightly before Bebop.
I believe so. Yes, it predates it by just a little bit,
but when they brought it to Toonami, right?
Yes, it was after Bebop. And so Outlaw Star has sort of always been painted with the reputation of like the epitome of the 7 out of 10 anime. The sort of store brand Cowboy Bebop. Mm-hmm. And it's a show that yes, it's a show that I have a lot of affection for, but I had not seen it in a while, and Iro had never seen it, and we just decided to check it out because, you can call it a 7 out of 10 show, but I would dare you to find an anime made in 2024 that could match Outlaw Star's vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what we kept enjoying about the most, right, is the vibe of 90s sort of action romp, very episodic. Each week we're just going to go on some other dumb adventure. And the plot can wait till the last 2 episodes. It's fine.
Right. It's very like PS1 JRPG coded. Like very
some
much
wild
like
arms,
yeah, like Town of the Week, NPC of the Week style storytelling. But amongst all of that, well, first of all, it is all of that, but it's all very like well done. Like the characters, simple as they are very likable. You know, they are broad but well executed versions of their respective archetypes. They are some of them are given just enough depth to kind of really flesh them out as like real characters with pathos. Not all of them. It's certainly not even in its characterization, but it has it where it counts. And I think the thing that Ear and I kept marveling at is just like Outlaw Star is like this is probably going to be a theme with both of these shows. Outlaw Star is just one of the coolest looking anime ever made.
Right. It's not that it's like Sakuga all day, all week, but just all of the set dressing of like space Hong Kong sort of
specifically like 80s, 90s space Hong Kong. Like
right. You know, and yes, we have spaceships and aliens, but also here's the samurai. We are going to eat at the dim sum place with the Chinese neon sign. We are shooting our shotguns at Taoist wizards.
It is the thing of like every time a computer screen pops up, it just has a bunch of Chinese text on it. Like it's like it is booting you up the Outlaw Stars version of like Windows 93, you know, and it's like, you know, a rudimentary CG dragon is like around the border of the OS. Like it's
right. It's like we've talked previously about, like, for example, Evangelion has a bunch of cool UI stuff on their computers, and this also has it.
Right, but about like a very different vibe.
Flavor. Yeah.
Would this fall under the bluff aesthetics?
I think so, to a certain extent. You know, like it is very much trading on its like intentionally, like, you know, chop socky Hong Kong action take on like the space opera, right? Like it's, you know, we have talked about the ascension of the space China aesthetic in the past, but I feel like Outlaw Star is the true space China for us. Like, just, you know,
right. I think Cowboy Bebop has some of it, but it's sort of dirtier and grimier. Whereas, and you could sort of say this about both shows next to each other, but Outlaw Star is neon and the idea of Hong Kong. Right.
Yes.
At the time.
But yeah, just a cool show. You know, again, like the story is, you know, it is what it is. It is a vehicle for the characters to reach the end, and for Jean Starwind and Melfina to declare their true love for each other. But
after hardly talking for most of the show,
yeah, so the character, you know, it's you know. You know, is it a 7 out of 10 show? Is it a show, or you know, to use Eero's insistence on the 5-star system? Is this a 4-star show? Like, I don't think you would like Eero. I think you would not call Alistar a 3-star show, but it is like a
4, right?
It is a 4-star show that just like barely makes it through the door there.
It's really making you want to say 3.5.
Yes,
I would never,
but Iroh won't allow it. Yeah.
So you would call it? I mean, that's
I
the
would
point,
call it a 4-star show. Ugh.
Yeah, like it is. It's a good anime.
I had a great time.
Yeah, and a good anime we had a great time with. You know what? That's
yeah. Just is it amazing? Not really, but I had a good time.
Yeah, just yeah. It reminds you of just that era of anime in which like anime could just be imagery almost. Like, like there's not a lot of good explanation for like a lot of its aesthetics. Like, you know, like the thing we marvel at very early on is just like, you know, the characters would just like walk up to like a panel and it would just zoom in on the panel and it would have like 7 different buttons and switches, 4 different like ports on the side, right. Random cables. It's just cool.
Taped up. Yeah.
Right. Just, in a way that I think a lot of, as anime has largely cleaned up its act and its aesthetic in, you know, that is just kind of the modern look of anime now. I feel we've kind of lost some of this analog grittiness.
Yeah.
I do remember watching like an episode or two, but at the time I was starting to get into my like artsy snobbish media consumption, and it was like, you know, too I don't know. I was a dumb
Juvenile,
teenager at that
like,
point, so I cannot justify my. It's something I probably would enjoy a lot more now.
I think it has like a wider reputation as be just being like middle of the road too bad, but I think it's fun.
Yeah. I think I would go as far to say I think that reputation is probably undeserved, honestly. Like, I think a lot of people, if they watched Outlaw Star in 2024, they would actually find a lot to appreciate about it.
Yeah. Artemis, do you remember anything about watching this at any point? I think you said you had seen it, but...
Yeah, I've seen it. It was a while ago, so, you know, I'm not super fresh on it, but I definitely enjoyed it. I think... I don't really like comparing it to Bebop. I think it's kind of unfair, not just because it came technically before, but I just think the vibe, like you can make comparisons in genre, of course, but I think the vibe is a totally different vibe.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think it's an anime that really does deserve to stand on its own. And I'd agree in general. I don't think people could find anything. You know, not even today, but even back then, I don't think there were a whole lot of shows that were quite like Outlaw Star.
I would definitely agree. I think Outlaw Star is actually a lot more unique than maybe its like historical reputation.
That it's given credit for. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like
there. I think there are a couple with similar vibes out there, like older ones, but not really that many. It's not an anime that's easy to compare to any other, which is a good thing.
Yeah. I think so, yeah. I mean, the last thing I will say, I think, for Outlaw Star is, I think Outlaw Star also represents, like, it is the platonic ideal of, like, the show we keep hoping a lot of these anime originals will be. Right? Like, when we watch Akare Ranman, when we watch High Card, when we watch Sakugan.
Yeah.
Like, I think every time those shows come up, and it's like, oh, here's yet another anime original with a really strong first episode that establishes the dynamic, we all go, yes, episodic adventure with a wide cast of wacky characters.
Just have fun.
And then they never succeed at it. And I think Outlaw Star is that show. And I think, ironically, it succeeds because... Iro alluded to it briefly, because it's 26 episodes. And so, like, 15 of those episodes can literally be like, and this week, Gene Starwood met Space Ahab, who needs his help to hunt down a space whale on the space whaling planet. And it's like, yeah, fuck it, whatever. Like,
let's do it.
You have the time.
And I think that when you're restricted to 12 to 13, I think it actually is kind of harder to do that, because
you have like a
episodes.
Yeah, you have like a maybe
intro,
4 to 6 episodes to do messing around in, right?
Exactly.
I think I'm not against the 12 to 13. I just think that some shows are better suited for that and others are not. And these something like Outlaw Star, I could not possibly imagine as a 12 to 13 episode show. It just would defeat the purpose of Outlaw Star.
Right. Like, the fun is the meandering, right? It is kind of the wandering through the setting.
Right.
Yeah.
Just funny, you guys named a bunch of shows ruined by Kenjiro Suda, but anyway, let's let's move on and let's talk about your other backlog show here with Escaflowne. What did you guys think of that
Escaflowne, huh?
Escaflowne.
It has a lot of really good vibes to it, I think. Not to constantly harp on vibes as an indicator of quality for a show or not, but I think I what I keep saying, like, watching Escaflowne is 15 minutes. Every episode of Escaflowne is like 15 minutes of incredibly trite, like, shoujo drama, and then 4 minutes of some of the coolest mechs you've ever seen.
Escaflowne is like visually Yeah, like maybe one of the coolest things I've ever watched in my life. Escaflowne is an artistic, like it is an accomplishment, man. Like there are like Escaflowne is the master of imagery. Like there are just moments in Escaflowne that are seared into my brain. Like the way, like it's hard to explain it, but just like the way the setting is drawn, like the way the mechs carry the Gaimalefs carry themselves, like the weight and the like it's kind of like it reminds me of like the real like the best moments of like the Big O of like oh like these mechs like have so much presence on screen and the world has so much presence. Like the Escaflowne world fascinates me so much. There's so much to like about it. And I think what Ira and I have kind of been alluding toward is that the story that is told in the Escaflowne setting,
it was not terribly interested to me.
I think it's just not for us, right? Like, I mean, so for those like, so Escaflowne, right? Like the story of Escaflowne, just really quick, right? It's one of the OG isekai stories, right? Hitomi, a high school girl, gets isekai to a fantasy world with mechs, where she meets two hot boys who vie for her attention, and it turns out that her falling in love with one of these boys may like change the fate of the entire like universe itself. And what this all means is that like Escaflowne is actually largely a shoujo romance story that happens to be told in an extremely hard like mecha fantasy setting.
Right.
And I don't want to like hate on it too much. I think what like we're really getting at is just like it's not our flavor. Like I'm you know, like I'm not against like romance stories, and I'm not even against shoujo as a genre, but it is not really I think not really my thing.
Not our
thing. And so I think a lot, you know, so it's like you have like Hitomi, this like very normal high school girl, like standing amidst the wreckage of like the fucking most like ballin' mecha battlefield you've ever seen. Like knights laid low, impaled by lances, men swept aside like leaves in the wind by a single mech. And Hitomi's going, damn, I wonder which one of these hot boys I should smooch.
Van Allen, don't fight. Fighting bad.
I do think we all are fans of the fantasy mech aesthetic.
It's cool. It's a really cool setup
when done correctly. Yes.
Maybe it's the best realized I've seen it. Right.
Like we've watched Dunbine. We've watched bits and pieces of like we watched Border Break. We watched Panzer Gallant. Like Escaflowne is like the best version of this specific concept. Like the idea of the mech as a knight, the idea of the mech as like a larger than life embodiment of nobility and knighthood and chivalry. Like Escaflowne does it better than like almost any of these. And I think those are the moments where like our jaws hit the floor during certain moments in Escaflowne.
Right.
But as a whole, it very much gives me the vibe of a show that like maybe could not decide on its
focus on, right?
Could not decide on its demographic all the way to the very end. You know, like Like it feels like at the very like in its final episodes, it's finally like okay, this is a shoujo romance about star-crossed lovers. We're committing to this, but like. It takes quite a while to get there.
Right. And like it shows at its best, I think, when it is able to bring these sort of two disparate things together into like some really strong moments in the show, and it does not succeed at doing that as often as I would have liked.
Yeah, I will say this, right? Like because Escaflowne does carry a certain reputation in certain circles of anime fandom. Like there are, there is a certain generation of anime fandom for whom you can whisper the words Escaflowne and like they'll like disassociate to a different like century. And I do kind of get it. I think Escaflowne is one of those shows where if you had been lucky enough to catch this in the nascent era of American anime fandom, if you caught this in the early 2000s, I get it, man. This anime would have been your Cowboy Bebop or whatever. Like, it would have rewritten your brain chemistry.
It's like I saw like a few episodes of that Fox Kids dub of it, right? When I was young. And,
oh god, yeah.
and so, but like bits from that have stuck in my mind, right? Like
totally, yeah.
Like lines here or there. And yeah, like I could definitely see if you watch this at the right time and place, it would be formative, right?
Yeah, like I think that's the thing. Trying to be fair to Escaflowne, because I know it has a lot of fans. It is a story with a really strong identity, and I think it's just that identity was, maybe just not quite what Ira and I were hoping for. But
it's certainly ambitious from what I recall.
Oh, yeah.
I watched this in, I'm going to say late 2000s, like pre-210s, but definitely not, like early aughts. So I too missed the, right time and place exactly for this, but
right.
I give it a huge amount of credit just for trying to tell the story to begin with, because I don't think many people would take that swing.
Right.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
And great music too.
Oh yes. Anytime the music kicks in, right, and you hear the chorus just going Escaflowne.
I think Yoko Kanno.
Is it Yoko Kanno? Yeah, right. Unless I'm misremembering,
yeah.
but I'm pretty sure. Yeah. It's a show that will never be repeated ever. You know what I mean? Like,
yes. That is true.
And I don't think, I mean, I know it's an anime original, so I don't, when I think of the genre, or I guess I should say demographic, I think it's one of those things that kind of defies demographic. I know there were many manga based on it. I think the first one was actually a shonen manga.
Right. I mean, the production of Escaflowne involved a different director who then was invited to do G Gundam and left the project. And so then they brought in Kazuki Akane, who decided to morph the demographic to be more to have more appeal to girls also. Right.
For me, if I'm kind of putting everything else about this anime aside, like the ambition of it and the technical aspects and everything, it was okay. I feel like a bunch of people are going to come for my throat, but it was fine. It wasn't really my
man. Like every time Escaflowne blocks the liquid mercury attack and it splinters like string cheese and man, what a
cool.
Oh man, when the Espano clan shows up to repair Escaflowne and they're freaking Warhammer 40k Jawa guys. Oh man,
pulling the horseshoes off Escaflowne just to crowbar off these inch-thick iron plates at the soles of its feet so that we can hammer new ones on. Taking.
But then you guys finished watching, right?
We did.
I can. Is it considered a spoiler? However many years later, when the kind of the more shoujo-esque high drama parts did make me. I do distinctly remember rolling my eyes a bit, even back when I watched it. Because I said to myself, the episode before, wait, I bet there's a secret identity, and I bet this he is secretly a she. And then one episode later,
right.
Yeah, I mean, you called it.
It's that kind of a show.
And I think we have praised other shows for sort of being generic and playing the hits and being knowingly so, and it's just that this is not the flavor we go for, but it is good at doing what it does.
So is this also getting the 4 out of 5 on the strict?
Ooh,
I would give it a 3 out of 5.
yes, I think I would agree as well.
Like,
I heap closer to 3
operating-
stars here.
Like, I'm operating on a extremely subjective scale, right?
Yes.
Always.
Yeah, from your own personal opinion, which
Enjoyment.
is the only
I
thing you
mean,
can
like,
give.
in some ways, what's really happening here is that both Outlaw Star and Escaflowne are 7 out of 10 shows, but the reviewers' tilt is pushing one
Yeah.
up a star and one down a star.
Yeah.
The cut where Shirazad just swipes down 3 Melifs.
Oh my god,
in
it's
2
so fucking
seconds,
cool.
though,
Oh
is
my,
a 5 out of 5.
holy shit, man! Just like every time Escaflowne uses its big, like mech-sized claymore to like saw a guy in half. Because like these mechs are so big and so strong, and they're not using beam weapons, right? They are using like physical steel swords, and to get to get a steel sword through another mech, you have to like press your whole body weight on the blade to push it through the other mech. It's so oh man,
It is it's just funny to me how it sounds like half the show is very much not your guys' thing, and half the show is very much your guys' thing. Like,
basically. I mean, look, man, Iro and I, we probably both have put together our own like separate like Escaflowne boards that are just like, all right, grab those, like store those in like the filing cabinet in your brain for just for future use.
Yeah.
How much do you think that that single episode of Gankatsuo, the Count of Monte Cristo, was influenced by Escaflowne?
Oh man. Yeah. Jeez, yeah, you're right. I haven't thought about Gankatsuo in a while.
Man, yeah.
That show was pretty good.
I think it was. Man, it's been too long. Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll save that for another backlog episode or something.
Throw that on the backlog.
Somehow it's still the most accurate adaptation of Count of Monte Cristo.
Somehow. All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to shows that aired this season.
The actual season.
Season wrap-ups here. So we'll start with talking about Nier Automata version 1.1a second season.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious how this ended.
It ended about how you probably imagined it ended.
Yes.
So did they just recreate the fight with A2 and 9S and that's it?
They did. They messed with it a little. Go ahead.
So yeah, like I guess they mostly follow the events of the game. Because we don't have a viewpoint character, it kind of tries to like harmonize ending C through E into a single like narrative sequence. So like A2 wins the fight against 9S. They kind of change it up so that like 9S basically like tries to like attack A2 from inside her mind, puts her into, forces her to battle her worst fears sort of thing. But because of the love and relationships she's formed along the way, she's able to break out of it. And so it mostly follows like ending C at first. Well, I guess it combines it all, right? Because A2 stays behind to deactivate the tower, but still allows the machines to fire the arc that has their memory stored on it into space.
Right.
And seemingly perishes as the tower collapses. And then it basically tries to recreate the events of ending E, but because it cannot quite do like ending E's like very genre bending like interactive like finale, what it tries to do instead is basically go, okay, what you experienced in the video game was like what was happening inside the pod network as viewed by the pods, right? Like shooting at the credits.
Right.
So it's like, well, here in the anime, we're going to show you what happened in the real world, quote unquote, during that period.
Which is much less interesting, right?
Right. So you basically get the sequence where, like Pod 42 and Pod 153 basically have their last stand against the remaining Pod network, right? The idea that the rest of the Pod network is here to enact the deletion of Yorha plan, and 9S and 2B's pods basically like fight them to the death. And that is a slight change here, where the pods do not survive the ending. They sacrifice themselves to rebuild 2B, 9S, and A2 in the hopes of giving them a second chance. And probably the most notable change from the game is we actually see 2B and 9S wake up and speak to each other before it fades to black.
Okay.
And the implication here is basically the thing that was implied in the ending of the games, which is that because of your efforts, or the efforts narratively, I guess, because it's not your efforts, the player anymore, but because of the efforts of everybody involved in the story, 9S and 2B will be able to overcome their pasts and move forward into the future together.
Right.
And so it's a lot. It's not as hard hitting because, like, how could you replicate the events of
that's
Automata?
that's the
but
thing.
In some ways, the anime even kind of acknowledges this, because it does not call this ending the end of Yorha. It is a new ending. It is ending E2, Alternative Eden.
Okay.
And I kind of treat this ending the same way I treat, for example, the Gurren Lagann movies, which, if you've seen, have a slight change some of the narrative events of the original show, mostly for the worse, but in a way that feels like fan service, in the sense that, hey, look, we know that what we're about to do here, like, kind of weakens the ending, but also it's kind of a treat for you, the fans. Like, I would not replace Nier Automata's ending with the anime's ending, but also,
but in the context of it being the anime ending,
yes,
right? It's fine, right?
Like it is nice to see 9S and 2B alive and well. Like it weakens it as a narrative, but as a fan, it like warms my heart to see that these two crazy kids made it in this messed up world.
Yeah, and I think, as we've said many times at this point, like, there's absolutely no way you could recreate the ending of the game. I mean, one of the reasons why I love Nier Automata is because you have to experience it as a video game to truly understand, like, get the vibes of the story, right? Like, there's just no way to recreate that in another medium. So there's only so many things they could do with it, and it sounds like that was a pretty solid way of reinterpreting it, rather than trying to figure out, like, God, like, if they had actually put, like, a little dot on the screen dodging the credits, like that would have been awful, right? But, like, sounds like they found a pretty solid way of reinterpreting, and I think thematically it still makes sense, right? I don't think
it still works.
Changes. I don't think it changes the message, even if it's a little more, I don't know, I don't want to say positive per se, but you know what I'm saying. Like, the fact,
but it is. It is an unambiguously happier ending.
Right.
Other than the
but thematically, it still sounds like it's the same idea of,
It is. I mean, the way I told Iro is, like, let's be real, right? I think 99% of people who played Nier Automata choose to interpret the ending as 9S and 2B will be able to overcome their past, right? Like, it doesn't show it. But I think most of us interpret it as that, right? Because of tonally how they frame the ending.
Right. The hope is there that, there's always going to be hope, right? Basically, whatever happens
the anime
after
just
that
confirms
is up,
it.
Right. Whatever happens after that is up for interpretation in the game, where the anime is confirming it, right? So, yeah.
And the last thing I will say, I would definitely want to give the Nier anime credit for, is A2 is definitely a much better developed character in the anime.
Right.
I think
because we get
A2,
those few episodes focused on her.
Yes. A2 definitely gets a lot of time to shine in this anime. She gets a lot more depth and characterization, and so it's like, again, I would not say, like, oh, like, the anime is the definitive way to experience the story, but more like, hey, if you've played the games, I think you definitely should watch the anime, because I think there is enough here to like to still get to still get something meaningfully out of the experience.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just go back to the question we've had since day one, though. If you haven't played the game, should you watch the anime? Because I always felt like the answer to that was no. But
it wouldn't stop you, right? But
I think
it would stop you. I'm just saying.
Okay,
I'm
sorry. I wouldn't stop you from doing it.
But,
yeah.
I'm not going to say it's impossible, because, like, I'm sure statistically there are people who have never played the games and enjoyed the anime. Like, someone out there has liked this anime. I liked the aesthetic of the anime. I thought it was very pretty. Mm-hmm. I thought it was very technically lovely, etc. But I stopped watching after the first episode,
right?
Because I just didn't know what was going on, and I didn't really care.
I think it's fair.
Plot wise.
Yeah, I did feel like that. I only watched the first season. I didn't watch season 2, but from what I watched, it was like they were making a lot of assumptions on things that.
Yeah.
I think you would get the gist of the plot, but like for it to be really meaningful, I felt like you would have had to have played the game.
I think so.
I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't think it's bad to make a show or any like any story based on something for the fans of that franchise. That's fine, but
right,
yeah. And in some ways, I mean, as someone who liked the game, I like this better, because if you had just done it for somebody who hadn't played the game, then you're just going to like retell the story or whatever. And I don't think that's what we didn't want, right? when it started, like, we didn't want an exact retelling of the, and as we've said, you can't even really do that because of how the game works. But yeah,
I think it works as a solid companion piece to the game.
Oh yeah, definitely. Right. I mean, no need to get into it here, but like there were moments in towards the end of this anime where Iro and I just had to look at the show and go, I assume that's like a thing from like a web novel or the mobile game, because I have no clue what I'm looking at here, but I assume it's like important to some supplementary piece of like narrative.
Yep.
Accord does make an appearance in the final episode for the people who care about who Accord is.
Getting in deep now.
Small number of people who played Dragon Guard 3.
The last thing we'll say is, like, sadly, the ending of the anime did not coincide with the announcement of Yoko Taro's next project.
Right.
Not that I think we seriously expected that, but it
was fun to joke about.
It was
fun. I think Yoko Taro did in fact host a panel during TGS in which he explicitly said, "Man, it sure is nice that like Square just asks me to participate in these panels despite the fact that I have nothing to show and I'm not working on anything."
Part him out.
And it's because it's Yoko Taro. He's either just absolutely telling the truth, or he is lying out of his teeth, and we will never know.
Yeah.
There are like, I would not go as far as sequel hooks, but there are like there are definitely things lingering in the anime that perhaps in 3 to 6 years we'll go back and say, see, he
did.
He was hinting at it the whole time. It was
right.
He did it in the anime. It was there.
Yeah,
right.
I think that would only be with.
I remember when the Yorha stage play first came out, and everyone was like, "What the hell is this? What's going on?"
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, it sounds like this was a successful adaptation.
Yeah,
I think
all the way
so.
Through.
Yeah.
And you love to see it because it's very rare. So. All right. Let's move on to talk about Senpai is an Otokonoko. I do have some thoughts about the ending on this.
Aren't we all?
I think I'm still overall pretty positive on the show, but Artemis, what do you think? What did you think about the ending?
I don't like anime films.
Okay.
Are they doing Are they doing a movie?
They are doing
ending?
a film. They're doing a movie, yes. Like, and
Okay,
I just
didn't
hate
even
that.
know that, but
They are.
I
I
can
hate
see
it.
why that might be necessary. But yes, okay.
No, I can see why it might be necessary. I just hate that it is necessary. Like, just make the show. Just finish the show. There's no need for a movie. Stop
Okay.
it.
See,
Artemis,
yeah,
I have really bad
General
news for
fantasies
you
allowed
about
to
those are both fantasy then.
No, okay. Well,
Now-
look, listen.
That doesn't count.
Exceptions can be made.
Exception
No,
approves the rule.
also, I will say, I don't hate. Okay, let me backtrack a little.
Okay.
I don't hate anime standalone movies. Like, I had no beef, for example, with the Spy Family movie.
Right.
It's just there. You don't need to. You don't need. You can see it or not. Like, whatever. It doesn't really matter to you, regardless of your investment in the series. It's just there as a story.
But when it's like core to wrapping up the
Exactly. Yes.
emotional
yes,
arc.
Yes. That is what I dislike.
Yeah. So I actually didn't even know that. I was just kind of thinking, wow, that's weird. This ending seems to be missing some pieces to it.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
I do think they covered some of the more important things to kind of come to a stopping point. But there were definitely some like oddly missing things. Like, okay, so like there's two main plot lines going into the final stretch, right? Both of them involve the bad moms. So there was the bit with the girl Saki. She reconnects with her mother who's been gone for 10 years or something. And this was like the most incomplete part to me because they never get into like why her mom apparently like abandoned them or got kicked out of the house or something. Like she's been living with her grandmother this whole time. And her grandmother was like dead set against her even like reconnecting with her mom. But when we meet her mom, she seems very nice. Like we don't, but so like we don't know what she would have done.
I assumed that the way that would go is that the mum would drop her again, and the grandma would be like, "See, this is why. Like she did that before. She's doing it again."
But like,
nope.
And it's like, okay, so they kind of they never give you any explanation. The only thing we see is she does eventually talk to her Saki's grandmother, or would be her mother, but it's very kind of like just, okay, glad to see her alive, very basic interaction or whatever. And it kind of implies that there was some kind of disagreement between them. But like, I feel like something pretty serious would have had to happen for you to disappear out of your daughter's life for 10 years. Like,
and then not only that, but to forbid your granddaughter from even texting her, like, because she was dead set against like, no, you will no longer text your mother, and I will be I will be checking to make sure you do not do that.
And what happens is, Saki kind of insists, and her grandmother's like, all right, well, you're old enough to make your own decision. I shouldn't tell you what to do. And she reconnects with the mother. Everything is going good. And that plot line just ends there. There's no explanation as to what happened, or like, they're just, now that everybody's cool, at least by the end of the TV series. Right. So that was weird.
The grandma forgives the mother, not forgives, but like remarkably quickly. Like, I get why the grandma would cave on letting her granddaughter see her mum, because she is of an age where she can start making these decisions for herself. But then for the grandmother to also be sitting down in the kitchen and be like, well, I guess it's fine if you go out for the day, or like for the even I think it was an overnight trip even. Like, that was a very quick turnaround considering how dead set you were a couple days ago on not even like letting
it's like
text.
Again, if it was like, I don't know, like she was gone for a couple months or something, that may be one thing, but like she was gone like her entire childhood. Like I don't like something bad must have had to have happened, or either that or this is just a very badly written plot line. So that was weird. Then we get to the main plot line where the main kid Makoto is finally ready to confront his mother about his exploration of his gender, let's say, and how he's been trying to hide it from her all this time. And it does again, initially does not go well. Like, she literally starts having a panic attack and faints and all that when he kind of puts his foot down and, says, this is who I am. And this leads to I guess a whole backstory where Makoto's dad is like, well, it's time to meet your grandfather. And we get the backstory of why his mother is so against this, because it turns out his grandfather is just like he is, and he's never met his grandfather or known about it up till now, but he goes and visits his grandfather. And in some ways it is nice because, like, now he finally is in a place where he's comfortable being himself. And actually, I don't think they switch his pronouns in the show. I feel like we should probably switch them, though, because there is a point where they straight up ask, again, or he says again, when Dad asked me if I wanted to be a boy or a girl, and I don't want to be either. So, yeah, that part was, I guess, okay as far as like him going to meet his grandfather and everything, but the problem I more had was like coming back home, like his mom also just kind of flips a switch and is cool with it.
It's just we're done. We had our confrontation, and even though nothing happened in the confrontation, because the confrontation happened, we're done with it.
She does at least still express her like concerns, and it's obvious that she's not like 100% comfortable, but she is more or less 100% accepting, which is a very fast.
Yeah, like she's literally like, let's go clothes shopping, right?
Right.
It's not even like, okay, well, I'm just gonna let you do what you want. It's like,
and ignore
okay,
it, yeah.
I'm now actively participating.
Right. While you are dressed, what they was it? Did that how it go down? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure they went clothes shopping and Makoto was dressed as a girl too.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Like wearing a wig and yeah. Okay.
Yep. And I like the only thing they do is like they have one moment that I think was supposed to like in the episode it happens afterward, but I think chronologically in the story it happened before, where Dad shows her like photos of Makoto, from summer vacation, being very happy with their friends and also wearing girls' clothes basically, and that was like supposed to be like the big turning point or whatever. But I don't know, it just felt very convenient, and I think it's kind of like my biggest problem with this show in handling the more serious topics. Not that I don't think they handle them badly, but they're so trying to hang on to this kind of more easygoing, lighter tone, I think, that they don't want to dive too much into the conflict. Even though that's what they're doing. But once they get in there, they're like, oh, we can't stay here too long. That's like the best way I can explain it. So like everything just gets resolved very quickly and back to, everybody's happy again.
They want to at least end on this optimistic, gentle, everyone is a good person actually kind of note.
And I do wonder if like maybe an extra episode would have helped because especially
so then, what's the movie about?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So that's where we're getting into, right? Because I did not realize there was going to be a movie.
Is that where the drama bomb will happen? Like,
I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to watch it, to be honest. Like, it just pisses me off.
But like the drama bomb already happened, so like everybody's cool by the end of. I mean, unless they get into like Saki's mom thing, but that was like the side story. So like I don't know.
I enjoyed the show overall, but it's not how I would have wished it to be.
Yeah.
I wish that like none of the Saki stuff had happened. Like I wish they had just like the first few episodes were really good. They should have just stuck with that, and the only main conflict should have been the mom. I hated the love triangle stuff. I think it was the worst possible storytelling device you could have shoehorned in there for
Yep.
no good reason. You had a good story. All you had to do was stick with it.
Yep. Yeah, and you know, I talked about that all throughout the run of the show on the podcast.
You had one job to do.
Yeah, I did not. Yeah, so it's like I very much appreciate and admire the effort given here to put, you know, the topics that they cover front and center, and you know, they don't shy away from, I don't think, I would say, talking about them, even if they don't kind of dive into some of the conflicts and things. But and I overall, I still think I'm positive on the show as far as, like, I don't know, I do like the characters, and it's charming. Like, it's just that having seen the whole thing now, I'm kind of appreciating how much of a mess the writing and the storytelling it was. Like, it's just kind of all over the place, and then, you know, in some parts things aren't just making sense, and then other parts it's like we're relying on really lazy love triangle plot lines and things like that. But I don't know, it's a little disappointing, but I think there are positive things to take away from it.
I liked it. I did like it overall. It went from like a really strong like 8 to even possibly 9 start for me to like an above average 6. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
We
only do strict 1 to 5 stars here now. Like,
okay, fine. It went from a
4 to a 3.
You don't do 0.5s. Okay, it went. It was a 4, almost 5 for me at the very start.
Yeah,
and it dropped to a 3.
I would keep it at a 3. I wouldn't go down to 2. But
no, I wouldn't go down to 2. It was a all right.
But yeah, no, I mean, even in like the very, very beginning, like the first like episode or 2, it had like 5-star potential, I think. But
right, and if I sound overly negative, it's not because the show overall is bad. It's just that I'm disappointed because it could have been so much better.
The thing that disappoints, is always hits harder than something that's just bad.
Yeah. So. Yeah, just there are good things there. It just, you know, it could have been better, which perhaps a good enough transition into.
Yeah, I was gonna say, speaking of next show.
Yeah,
let's talk about Mayonaka Punch.
Oh boy!
You were supposed to be the chosen one. You were supposed to be the dirtbag comedy of the season.
Okay.
What is this saccharine? Fucking
well,
everybody hugs it out bullshit.
The ending was a choice, which to be okay, if I'm gonna try to spin some kind of positivity onto this, I did prefer what they did with the ending over if they had just played the whole thing straight.
Yes, brother.
So to kind of put it out there, because it's important to the discussion of what happened, the last stretch of episodes, like 3 or 4 episodes or something, the team gets word that they no longer have a month left to get their 1 million subscribers. They now have, was it a week or a day or something? I don't remember.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. You know, Mother changed her mind. You only have like a week or a day or something left to do it, and everyone starts freaking out. It causes a bunch of conflict, which leads to you know, Leave getting mad and leaving the group. And
more importantly, Masaki says a lot of like typical Masaki toxic bullshit.
Masaki's you know, level of being an asshole is elevated by the stress, and and Leave takes off, and everyone's freaking out, and they are desperately trying to put together like one last stream to get the
1 million subscribers.
Get the 1 million subscribers in the time they have left, as improbable as it seems. And, you know, they're being chased by these like hunters sent by Mother to stop them.
Right, because the premise of their the premise is they are setting up in the abandoned hospital where Masaki first met Liv, and they're setting up a 24-hour stream in which the gimmick is they are revealing that they are actually vampires. And so you are set up to believe that Mother has sent her like vampire hunter enforcers to to kill the
Right.
stream, right?
And so this is going on over the course of like I think 3 episodes or something, and it's awful. We all hated it. Like we all think this is like the worst direction they possibly could have gone. It's very it's like the jokes are gone. It's very serious, like dramatic, and like we all hated it. And like I said, this is like several episodes of the show that they are spending on this. And then in the final episode, they reveal that the whole thing was a setup to trick Misaki into putting herself back on camera because she was reluctant to do that.
It's just a prank, bro.
It was just a prank, bro, and also to, you know...
thing to do. Like, the thing is, but then it's not like funny dirtbag, what a messed up thing to do. It's just kind of mean. I don't know. Right? Like,
yeah, like, I think it doesn't work because, like, it is too mean-spirited of a plan to feel, like, heartwarming, but they also do not frame the mean-spiritedness of this plan as comedy either.
Yeah.
It's framed as, like, look at how much we care about you to put on this elaborate thing. Yeah.
To get you to be honest
yeah.
about your feelings.
I do think it was supposed to come off as, yes, they did it because they care about Misaki, but also is clearly a misguided attempt. Like, it was probably not the best thing for them to do. I guess my thing is, like, I do prefer that to that if it was just straight up turned into dramatic show or whatever.
Oh yeah, definitely. That would have been like the worst outcome. It's
still bad though, because we spent all that time basically going through the same experience if it was real. Like,
yeah.
And we could have been doing something better than that.
Right.
In that time also, that we had.
It kind of like falls flat on its face because like the whole point of this show has been like, okay, like we're gonna follow the YouTubing careers of these vampires, and like so it's like, okay, I guess they had to create like a dramatic framework for why they're YouTubing and why that's the climax of the story, and I don't know, it just doesn't work, man. It really, I feel like,
yeah.
And it's not entertaining, like, and it's not dramatic.
I don't know if they were like being real bold and thinking there was going to be a season 2 or something, but nothing gets resolved. Like the show ends with still like a month for them left to get their subscribers, and it's back to making videos, and we don't know what happens. And I don't necessarily need a definitive ending all the time, but I feel like in this show, it felt like a cop-out.
I mean, we also get your like super hackneyed reveal of like, oh, see, this is why Liv and Misaki were fated to be together.
Oh God, I forgot about that too.
Their fateful encounter 20 years ago or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, you know,
like how Misaki would not like, look, man, kids are dumb, but also like Misaki like seemed old enough in that flashback. Okay, like how young would you have to be to not remember getting bitten by a talking bat? Like how young?
You would have to be like an infant. Like,
right.
I mean, I remember I have little snippets of memory from when I was like 3 years old. Like, I would remember getting bit by a bat.
Like, I mean, she was walking, she was talking.
Yeah, wasn't she like school age? Like,
yeah, she looked like she was like in preschool.
She was wearing that preschool outfit.
Okay, preschool age, yeah.
You know, like, look, I don't remember much from preschool, but I feel like I would remember, oh yeah, I met a talking bat.
And it bit me.
And it drank my blood.
Yeah, that would be hard to forget, I guess. But I don't know, man. It's, again, disappointing because I really enjoyed the show in the beginning. And, I mean, to some degree, I'm just a sucker for these kinds of shows where, like, I guess the charm of it still made me kind of enjoy it to a certain degree. But, like, they've made so many missteps going throughout the whole process of this. You know, pretty much since like the Foos episode, right? Which was probably like the last like really good episode that I could, which was like episode like 4 or something like that.
I mean, in some ways, Foos episode almost ends up being this weird canary in the coal mine of like.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like that was when I was like, oh, this show's gonna try to be saccharine and heartwarming.
I think that's the thing. Is I think Foos episode in isolation is still good, but
yeah.
I think what we didn't realize is, they're gonna try this like 4 or 5 more times between now and the end of this show, and the execution is not going to be anywhere
worse.
as good as the Fu episode.
Yeah,
which
because at the Fu episode, I was like, I looked at it more as like we're opening up all these like wide possibilities of like looking into the the backstory of these characters that have been alive for who knows how long, some of them hundreds of years, so there's decades. Give me the backstory of oh god, what's her name, the worst one,
Tokage.
Tokage. Give me the backstory where she was getting involved with the Yakuza or something like that, right?
Like, where is my like Showa era Tokage like backstory?
Like they give you like one screenshot of like hinting at that, and it's like that should have been an episode. Why wasn't that an episode?
Should have revealed that Tokage, before she became a vampire, she was a veteran of the Akiba Maid Wars.
Right. So and it's like that wouldn't have had to have been a heartwarming episode. That just would have been something different, right? Like
I mean, it's like we were talking about with Outlaw Star. Like sometimes we can just appreciate just some one-off episodes that flesh out the characters, or don't even necessarily flesh out the characters, but just allows them to do wacky stuff.
But yeah, instead we got every other episode from there on was just like we said, kind of shifting more toward this sort of like, I don't know, heartwarming sort of thing, and B, just focusing on the normal YouTube stuff, which I mean, from what I can tell, they've got a pretty mid YouTube channel. Like it's not a very good
YouTube channel.
It's not like a very good YouTube channel.
I would never subscribe to somewhere that uploaded multiple videos a day, like.
And people just like eating hamburgers or something, right? Like I don't know. It was just a lot of lost potential here. I mean, even if they stuck to that and just kept it as like dirtbag comedy, it would have been fine. And it's that just they couldn't keep it together. So disappointing once again.
Yep, swing and a miss for PA Works. I mean, it's
yep.
Look, for better or worse, I think Akiba Maid War is going to haunt that studio. For us, anyways, because every show they put out, we're just going to go, like...
It is a very high bar.
It's as good as Akiba Maid War.
What's her name? Ronko, what's her name?
Ronko
yes.
Old or whatever.
36-year-old...
36-year-old maid.
36-year-old maid Rakamon. Nothing will ever top. They will never top anything. They will never top the part where spoilers. At her funeral, when the only picture they have is her baseball episode picture. Her funeral. They will never top that type of storytelling. Few things ever will. Funny. But
man, all right, we can't just sit here and talk about how
this is not about the main war. Please go watch that if you haven't. But the Mayonaka Punch overall, I think a disappointment. It had some fun times. I still found it charming to a certain degree, but they just could not pull it together, unfortunately.
Alas.
Okay, let's talk about a show we haven't talked about in a long time. Twilight Out of Focus. I was trying to remember which Boys Love show this was, but it was the roommates and the drama club, right? I remember the dude literally writing BL on a chalkboard at some point.
Yeah,
I found very funny. But you finished this Artemis?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Okay.
So it is not my show of the season, and it won't be in the top 10 of the year or anything like that. But it is the show that disappointed me the least because it did its damn job. It started off in one place and it ended another place, and it was consistent the whole way through, and it was moderately pleasing the whole way through.
That's so rare.
Sometimes that's all you can ask for, right?
Yeah, I think last time I was on the podcast and I also talked pretty briefly about it, and I mentioned that my initial impressions of the show is that it could be kind of appealing to anyone regardless of whether they were really into boys love or not. I revised that opinion last time, and said like, no, it's definitely more of a boys love specific crowd, which I stand by. But not that that's a good thing or a bad thing. It just is what it is.
Right.
And I think it did a really good job of what it set out to do. It gave a happy ending, always nice. It covered 3 different couples. So if you didn't like one of them, you just had to sit back and wait for the next one.
Okay.
They were all the couples were either in the drama club or the film club. So statistically, there are a lot of just gay boys running around, but that's fine. That's boys love for you.
That's what you signed up for when you were watching the show, right? Yep.
I think I've seen quite a lot of praise. I haven't read the manga, but I've seen a lot of praise that it was a really solid adaptation of the manga, and I can see that if I feel like the artwork of the anime is very manga-like for a lot of the time.
Yeah.
That kind of, not sketch-like exactly, but that very kind of softer.
It has some texture to it.
Yeah, like slightly whimsical. You know what I mean? Like it's not, which is nice because then it doesn't look like your stereotypical boys love generic anime. There are plenty of those around that could exist at any time and don't really do anything. But yeah, this is a solid show if you like boys love. It's probably one of the better boys love anime out there in terms of like presenting relatively healthy relationships, giving everyone a solid, not just happy ending, but a satisfying resolution to whatever emotional conflicts they have going on. It's not too heavy. Like it's not an anime that will randomly depress you halfway through or anything like that. It's a solid. It's a 7 out of 10 boys love.
But is it a 3 or a 4 star?
I personally gave it a 3 just because it wasn't necessarily my cup of tea all the way through. But I think technically, I would give it a 4.
Okay.
I think it did a very solid job, and it was just highly consistent. So I'll be generous and I'll give it a 4.
Again, giving it to the edge of if this is something that you
for fans of the genre,
right?
For fans of the genre, you should.
That's what you guys were doing before with the other shows, right? Giving the edge based on your personal preferences, right? So,
right. But for fans of the genre, absolutely, this should be a thing you should watch. It's got some more of those moments, those nice moments of humor throughout too, with that you kind of saw glimpses of in the first episode. They're not all the way through. They're just kind of scattered throughout. It's nice.
I'm glad to hear the relationships didn't get too unhealthy, because that was a bit of a concern of mine when I remember watching the first episode. So it's coming back to me, but
I had a concern as well, but no, there is no toxicity here. It's all very nice. It's not something I would recommend for someone's first boys love anime, because it does get, not that it's like explicit overly, but it is explicit without being getting R18, I guess.
Yeah. They show some things, is what you're
saying. They definitely absolutely show some things happen. When they have sex, everyone, it is very obvious that they are having sex. It is like, in multiple episodes, it's not a one-off thing, so you can't just kind of close your eyes for one scene if you're not into that kind of thing.
Right. But for some people that might be what you're looking for. So
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That's that's good. We're continuing our streak of 3 out of. Well, I don't know if we would have given Mayonaka Punch a 3 out of 5, but we'll leave that unrated for now. Okay. Well, let's move along and talk about Ramen Akaneko.
I'm curious what they would have pulled out for this to make a season climax.
You'd be surprised. Things did get a little weird, a little bit, by the show standards.
Mm-hmm.
We finally get a flashback showing how the two main cats, Kenjiro Suda, who is the actual ramen master of the shop, who's the one actually making the ramen, and if you recall, the owner of the business is a rich cat that rides around in a Mercedes and smokes catnip cigars or whatever, right?
But a fat cat, one might say.
Yeah, and we get their backstory because they were both stray cats hanging out together, and we find that they were taken in, or they were being fed by this guy who was running like a ramen stand outdoors, right? And he can't really take care of them, so he finds this nice rich lady to take them in. But so the boss cat stays with the nice rich lady, but Kenjiro Suda refuses to be tamed, and he wants to hang out with the ramen master and learn how to make ramen, right? So they go their separate ways for now, and so they keep giving us these bits of lore on how the talking cat thing works. As we've learned, there are some weird things where, like, apparently most cats are just normal ass cats, but like some cats can talk sometimes, and they say the explanation that's given is that cats will only learn to talk if they have to. So like if you're just a house cat or whatever, and you can just meow and get your food, you're never going to learn how to talk because you don't have the struggle.
Hey,
it's born of necessity, huh?
This is how Meowth learned to talk.
And in this flashback, we see Kenjiro Suda cat is hanging out on top of the ramen stand, and he's so passionate about wanting to help the ramen master that he starts to form words, and whatever the Japanese word for welcome is, you hear him start trying to say that half as a meow and not a real word, and it's a little weird. But that's why he could talk.
I might have to look up this scene just to hear Kenjiro Suda go half meow, half human speech.
Doesn't explain why they kind of turn into like squishy round cartoon cats instead of regular ass cats. But that's apparently how they start talking. And as far as the rich cat, how he started talking, this was the weirder. It's not really funny, but it's so absurd. So the rich lady that he goes to live with, who appears to be like middle aged. She's not old, but she's probably like in middle aged, let's say. Apparently, she gets sick and is dying, and I think the cat's name is Sasaki. I can't remember. She names him Pudding. That's one of the jokes. Is she calls him Pudding. But he, as his beloved master is dying, he decides he wants to learn to be her like in-house caretaker. And we get these scenes of him like going to nursing school and stuff. Like to learn how to be her immediate in-home care provider. And so he becomes her in-home aide, basically. Like, I mean, they still bring in like nurses for the the real stuff, but for just daily care, he becomes her caretaker, and that's how he learns to talk, basically. And it becomes this very like sad, melancholy, dramatic flashback of him taking care of his beloved master. She slowly dies, and that's why he's rich, because when she dies, she leaves all of her wealth to him, and eventually he ends up, I guess, buying the ramen shop and hiring Kenjiro Suda cat to and that's their backstory. But it was like basically they leaned on that as the big emotional bomb they drop in the last episode of how we got here. Okay, well that's not the last bomb they dropped. The very last bomb they dropped, which was more expected. That was just so weird and absurd that I was laughing at that. Even though it was supposed to be like a very like sad and emotional moment, I was like, also, this is so absurd that they would do this. the actual last thing they do, which thematically makes more sense, is we haven't had any assholes walk into the ramen shop lately that Kenjiro Suda can growl at, so we needed one more. And it turns out the main girl's old boss from her abusive workplace shows up drunk, him and a coworker walking into the ramen shop and just being just total asshole, the biggest of all of them, even more than the streamer guy earlier. And he recognizes the main girl and he's like, hey, didn't you used to work for me or whatever? Ha ha, now you're working for a bunch of cats, what a loser, and everything. And it's very uplifting as all the regular patrons and the staff basically kick this guy out. We see it ends with Tiger Sayori Hayami coming out, and she's actually mad for the first time in the entire show because she's very like meek and quiet and everything all the time, and chases him out of the building, and now she's finally find a place where she belongs, and that's kind of the nice thematic ending for it. But
sure.
So yeah, I actually liked what they did in the ending because stuff actually happened. Because for like most of the second half, even by this show's standards, if you guys have recalled me talking about it, nothing was happening. Like, we were looking at spreadsheets in one episode. Like, it was nothing.
Exciting.
Nothing was happening whatsoever. So it was kind of nice to have some, as weird and absurd as some of it was, some things happening in the final stretch. And yeah, I mean, overall, I really enjoyed the show. It's a very kind of fun, low key thing that I enjoyed very much. But I'd give it a 3 out of 5. Let's put it that way.
I've cursed y'all.
Yes. Okay.
I refuse to abide by this. I believe nuance is important to critical assessment.
Well, I'm just against numerical scores in general, but sometimes it is fun to throw that on there. But anyway, let's talk about something I don't know if we've talked about at all. I don't remember if we've talked about it at all this season, but Artemis, you actually did watch Oshinoko Season 2.
Yeah, I'll give it a 3 out of 5.
Okay. Let's move on to the next show.
All right, moving on.
All right. No, I mean, outside of the GLORIO chat, this is a very big deal. This is one of the biggest shows that aired this season. So.
Yes. And in Japan too, like it's big kind of everywhere, right?
Yeah, it's a huge hit otherwise.
And season 3 has been announced, so yep.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like people kind of knew that already, Like, people knew there would be a season 3.
Right.
So if I recall, Artemis, while you were probably more positive on Oshinoko than we were, you were also still not that positive on it.
Yeah, it's because I like certain parts and don't care about others. And I feel like a lot of people, depending on what you're there for, they like this but not that, or that but not like this. For me, I like the murder mystery parts. Like, that's kind of what I'm there for. I don't care about the show business parts at all.
Right.
Like, not even a little bit. I wondered if I would be able to watch season 2 all the way through, because a huge chunk of it is on the musical theater that they're doing, right?
Right.
And
they were doing like a live action stage play or something.
Yeah, it's a stage, like a 3D stage play,
like of
4D, whatever, however many D that are. I don't know.
Right?
Like and so there were a lot of parts where I was like, I don't know, am I going to have the patience to sit through, a show that is at least half, probably even more than half, just made up of them on stage doing the play and then going into their heads thinking about what they're doing as they do the play. Because it's very much the kind of show where that they're doing the thing, and then for 5 minutes you get a monologue about, like, that's right, now I will do this, but then
I will do the thing.
I have trained for this by doing this, and through a flashback in my youth I will explain why I am now acting like this.
I will take a potato chip and eat it.
Yes, that's what every character at some point, because they all get their own episode, while they're doing the play.
Right.
Like mid performance, they just go inside everyone's heads. every episode and explain their motivations and their acting style and why their acting style is changing from this to this and what motivated their reason to change their acting style from this to this.
Right. Which that stuff drove me crazy because I feel like Oshinoko, the good things are, like you said, the murder mystery, and then if we are going to get into the entertainment stuff, the critique of the entertainment industry. But
right.
how you're going to use your super detective powers to also make you a good actor does not have anything to do with either of those things.
Yes.
But
and then in the middle of that, you have Aqua and the whole romantic love triangle thing where he doesn't really care about either of the girls, but they sure care about him.
Oh, is it still the same two girls? I figured it'd be a
yeah, it is. It's Akane and
Kana.
Yeah.
The red hair one and the blue.
The red,
one.
yeah.
The red one and the blue one.
The red one and the blue one. Yes,
right.
yes. They are both still in love. They are
understand.
both still in love with him, and he's still he is aware that they like him. I don't think he's aware that they are in love with him, but he's aware that they are, that they like him,
Right.
and he just kind of doesn't really
engage with that because
he's got other stuff to do, like solve murders.
He's focused on murder, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, even though this season did not have a big kind of critique on the entertainment industry like season 1 had, they did do, and it was actually quite interesting, a backstory, or not even a backstory, like a story about how this play got turned into a play, and then the manga author who wrote the original story that is being adapted has a big problem because she doesn't like, when she goes to see a rehearsal, she doesn't like it.
All right, this was arc that I recall when the manga got to this arc.
Right, and they did a whole couple, 2 or 3 episodes, I think, where it was basically just covering how the play got to this state that she pretty correctly thinks is going to be a shit show.
Right.
How from A to B, technically speaking, this happened. Felt very realistic to me. I completely understand how a Japanese workflow would exactly result in this kind of situation.
Right.
This was the arc happening around when the live-action Kaguya-sama movie was coming out. And the writer
the author would have
Kaguya-sama
with some of this, right? Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting, and I did enjoy that actually quite a lot. So yeah, it's another mixed bag.
Did they actually make progress on the murder mystery at all? Or
yes, they did. Yes, they did. I haven't seen the finale yet, but before that, they show quite a bit to do with the murder stuff. There are revelations about who was related to who. Am I allowed to spoil stuff?
Sure.
I don't think we're going to watch it, so yeah.
So they're doing the stage play, and one of the new characters in season 2 is discovered. So Aqua discovers that they are half siblings.
Okay.
And so, because he's been DNA testing everyone without their knowledge, right.
I remember
he's been doing it indiscriminately. So he doesn't suspect that anyone in particular has anything to do with it or is related to him. He's just spending all his money that he gets from show business in DNA testing anyone in the industry who he comes into contact with, basically. So he's stealing cigarettes and just objects that they handle and tissues that they throw in the trash and stuff like that, and just systematically DNA testing literally everyone. So that was
if he has a half sibling and they know who their father is, and that's
right, and so that happened, but obviously and then he discovers that. Because he talked to the guy, he's like, guess what? Actually, we are half siblings. We have the same father. Here's my proof. What do you got? Kind of thing. But then the other guy was like, well, he's dead. So, so then Aqua is left now with this feeling of
all of this was for nothing. Yeah.
No, he's actually pretty positive. He's shocked. He's really, really shook, which you would be. But after that, he's like, does this mean I could be happy, and then
I
he
guess it's like-
spends the next couple of episodes being pretty happy.
Sure.
I mean, what are the odds that he's actually dead though?
Oh no, so the guy is dead, but he's not. He's clearly not like the guy who murdered
Oh, okay.
at all. And
Okay.
and Ruby has discovered this for herself, and so now the
Ruby gets to do
tables have
something.
switched, and Ruby is the one who was now going to be. It is implied, I having not seen the final episode yet, that she is going to be the one who is going to be out for cold revenge now, and being the one taken over by this drive, this singular motivation.
Is that why she's in sicko mode in the 3rd season promotional material that I've seen?
Probably.
Okay.
And again, haven't seen the finale. I assume Aqua is still oblivious that this is the case and thinks that this is just done now and he's done. He's finished.
Wait, are they not like sharing? I guess Aqua largely put solving the mystery on himself, right? He never actually told Ruby, "Hey, by the way."
I don't think he, at least in what I saw,
They're
I don't
not
think
sharing shit. So Ruby doesn't know that he is the doctor. Like, she has no idea.
No, I know that part is a secret, but I mean more like, but they, because they know
the murder
that,
investigation. I don't think he ever said anything to her. Right?
No. Well,
but
okay. What I'm getting is that Aqua and Ruby know that their situation is strange, right? Because they were talking to each other as like literal infants, right? So they are both aware that like.
I don't know if Ruby remembers it because it's implied. I don't know if she does because we don't really get inside her head that much in this season, but it's kind of implied to me, at least, and maybe I'm wrong, that Aqua does remember everything, but that he at least thinks that Ruby does not remember, like that she has had what is the medical term? Like infant amnesia, because you don't remember anything from when you were before an age.
Okay.
So I don't know whether she does or not, but I think he at least thinks that she doesn't recall. So he hasn't been talking to her about any of this. And in the second to last episode, when they visit the town where the hospital was, where he died,
right?
She finds his body decomposing in a cave and freaks out. Yeah.
All right.
Man, that's a trip, honestly. I mean,
yeah, and as you would, completely freaks out because she doesn't know that he's dead, that the doctor died, So or thought that if he did, like, or maybe she thought he did, but just hoped, like, I hope he just went away somewhere and found something that made him happy. I don't,
Mm-hmm. All right.
So yeah.
Will you be tuning into season 3?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably.
Because you're committed now, I guess, right?
Yeah, because I'm this far in, like you may as well. I did on the whole enjoy season 2, I think, despite my issues. I still think the good basically outweighed the bad for me.
Right.
It's a solid 7.
7?
Nice.
Okay.
A good solid number.
Yeah.
In a base 10 system.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really do not care at all about the romance stuff. Like, that is the worst stuff for me. Like, I would even take the show business, like monologuing over the romance. I just
right.
Oh yeah, I mean, in my ranking of like when I watched season 1 of Oshinoko, I think it was like murder mystery is definitely on top. Then it's like the show business stuff, right? I think season 1 had some not always successful, but pretty, but by the standards of anime, pretty good skewering of like entertainment media.
Right.
And
if
then,
not critique, at least some interesting observations, right?
Right.
And
I think after that, it's like Ruby's idol career is 3rd. Then after that,
exactly. Yes.
Power gap, and at the very bottom, it's the romance.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I feel.
Yeah.
But I will say at least the romance is not the central part of season 2 either.
Sure.
They deal with it in a couple of episodes, but it's pretty surface level.
Well, is your fear then that now that Aqua has been seemingly freed from the burden of hunting down the killer, that now his thoughts will drift towards, darn, which one of these girls should I kiss?
No, I think
Okay.
again, having not seen the finale or even the trailer for season 3, if
Okay.
there is a trailer and not just a visual or whatever, I just assume that it'll focus on Ruby primarily, and then Aqua will take
Sure.
the backseat.
Well, I as much as I did not like Aqua, maybe that's a good thing, but I guess we'll see.
See, that's the thing too. I like the girls that like Aqua. They are very fine characters in themselves. I enjoy
Right.
both of those people as characters. I think they're great. I just don't like the romance between everyone.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I didn't really understand why they, other than he's pretty. Why
Right.
they?
I think.
like,
no,
I think.
good.
I think.
Now that I think
Kana
back to
and,
season, yeah.
Oh, good. No, go ahead.
No, you go first.
I was going to say, I think Kana and Akane, the two girls that like him, I think they're some of the best characters in the show, like of everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, okay, that is basically what I was going for,
think
is
that
like-
on their own they are.
Yeah.
right.
Like, now that I think back on it, right? Because again, it's been a while. I didn't watch season 2, but I did watch all of season 1. Like, if I really do think back on it, yeah, like Kana and Akane are really good characters when they're not fawning over Aqua. Yeah. Like,
and that continues in season 2, and especially Akane, because she's crazy. She's a crazy person. She's a legitimate psycho.
she's the method actor, right? She's the one that gets like
Yeah.
way
Yeah,
way
but
into, like,
she's a goddamn psycho. Like, there are
That's
some
awesome.
lines that she has in season 2, and she doesn't know why Aqua is so hell bent on finding somebody within the entertainment industry, but they open up enough to each other that he basically says, without giving too much away, that he's after a guy that killed his mom, and he will find him no matter what, and he will kill him. And Akane's like,
just things to admit to your coworkers.
Wow, that's so hard.
and no, Akane doesn't say that, so she doesn't fawn over him for that. She looks at
Doesn't
him
understand
and she
why.
delivers in the perfectly creepy, nonchalant voice, "Don't worry, I'll help you." Basically,
Oh,
like,
shit.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh.
and you're like, man, this girl is nuts.
Look, man,
But
hey,
in,
as a
but in the best
PSA,
way for storytelling.
yes, as a quick PSA to listeners,
Mhm.
you want to be friends with the people who say, "I'd bury a body for you," and then in parentheses laughs. You don't want to be
Yes.
friends with people who say, "I'd bury a body with you," and then followed by silence. You don't want to be friends with those people.
Akane won't even help him bury the body. She'll help him do the deed and then bury the body.
Right.
Jesus.
Right. Yeah.
But
Damn,
it's
should I watch season
that
2?
is really
Damn.
well done. It's really well done. Like, just that episode is a really good episode.
Gee, I don't know what it says about us as soon as we start talking about crazy women that we're more interested in the show.
It's not
We
that
have
I
a
care that
sickness.
it's not that I care that she's crazy. It's just that they
It's entertaining,
they
though,
deliver
right?
it so,
Right,
they just
right,
deliver
yes.
it so well.
Yeah.
Because you know she's crazy. It's not that what, like, whoa, haha, she's crazy. They just, the way she is crazy, the way they tell you she is crazy without ever saying she is crazy is good.
Some just insane ride or die.
Just some
woman,
good storytelling.
it's-
Just some really
Sure,
good storytelling
yeah.
and good like voice actor delivery. Really, really
Yeah.
sold it for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, on to season 3 for that then, whenever that happens.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Well,
let's conclude by talking
Uh-huh.
about Dead Demons DDDD Destruction.
yeah.
Okay, so I do want to start with a technical note here.
Okay.
As we've discussed, you guys watched episode 0 first as it was intended for the anime, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I did watch it last, basically after everything. After
Okay.
watching the first 7, it's 17. It's 18 total if you're counting 0, right?
It would have been
yes.
It would have been between. It would have
would
been
have
right
been
before the
episode-
last
Yeah.
episode, right? The
Right.
penultimate
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, so that's basically what I'm getting at. I feel like they don't need to be clever with it. This should have just been the second to last episode, right?
It should have just been
Episode
episode 17.
So
Yep.
my recommendation to anybody watching this would be to watch that second to last. Would be
Yes.
my recommendation.
Not
But-
since the days of Gungrave has there been such a strong recommendation to not watch the first episode.
Gosh.
Maybe Haruhi? Didn't Haruhi have like a?
Ooh, Haruhi also had a real rough first episode.
Or they had a whole weird episode order thing.
Right.
It's their short movies.
Video,
it's their home video that in universe.
Yeah, that's the next thing that comes to mind. But
God,
yes,
I cannot believe I watched Haruhi to completion after that first episode. I think
I did. Must have been something wrong with me. I was advised to skip the first episode.
I watched the first episode of Haruhi, and I was still somehow convinced. Yeah, I'll watch the second episode of this for some stupid reason.
Not to get too far off track, I will still ride for the first light novel, the first volume of Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, and that's it. But anyway, yeah. So my recommendation for anybody watching this is don't watch episode 0 until the second to last episode. That is where it chronologically fits, and I don't think there's any storytelling reason why it needed to be at the beginning, other than
it did not have to. I mean, like,
whatever, but
here's our big disclaimer before we really get into the meat of our discussion of this show. I will fully own, and maybe Ira will also fully own, I won't speak for him, but that our feelings on this show are probably very heavily informed by watching episode 0.
Yeah, I would say so, yes.
I think we've seen that in our discussions throughout the season, how your guys' opinion has been different than like me and Zig, who did not watch episode 0, right? So, like we could see how that influenced things, yeah.
I will own that. I will happily own that, but I will say they put it out first. It's not
right. They chose to do this, right?
Yes, so you cannot blame us for watching the show in the order they chose to put out the episodes.
Right. Yep. So I think we all agreed that was probably a mistake, but we've been there before. So the actual ending. What you guys think?
It was okay.
The world, quote unquote, ends.
It was okay.
We get we had the countdown. I think last episode we left off on like the world ends tomorrow, basically. So
right.
So they kind of a lot of different things happen, I guess, in the last couple episodes. But what happens in the present timeline that we are in is kind of a somewhat middle ground where humanity broadly survives the explosion of the mothership or whatever, thanks to the efforts of I can't remember the kid's name right now. Oba, yes. So and a lot of people still die, as particularly in the within the area, but humanity itself appears it appears humanity itself will be okay.
Eventually,
yes.
Okay, in the sense of there are people left on Earth.
yes. Like,
we'll enter a heavenly delusion type situation.
Yes, the current timeline is not a good state for humanity, right? Like, it seems like civic government has mostly collapsed. Like, people are living in basically are rounded up into encampments. Like Japan is like directly dependent on foreign aid just to like exist as a nation.
Yeah,
right.
It is bad, but what we thought this timeline was heading to was just total destruction of the human race, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like, all right, humanity still exists, but not in a great place.
No, and I'm really mad because I have to admit, I would watch the mecha anime set in the setting of the post-time skip DeDeDeDe.
See, so we do kind of see, for our main girls, the end of their story in this timeline,
right?
Apparently involves them becoming mech pilots or something.
Yes, the ultimate punchline.
Yeah,
I want to know, because I didn't see that coming at all, but because you guys watched episode 0, which I feel like had some hints toward at least something happening with mechs.
No, I didn't.
We did not see this coming. Like,
okay, so because again,
but
I was watching episode 0 in hindsight, so I saw that they were hinting that mechs were coming, but there was no hint that our main girls would be involved with them at all, right?
And not piloted, right? Like, all the mechs
certainly not
show up till that point are like drones, basically.
Right.
So, so the ultimate punchline of Dead Demons, right, is that like, you don't actually get to see what happened to Oran and Karode. right? Like after in the quote unquote past, right? The last you see of them is holding hands in the face of Armageddon, and we go to Karude's father's perspective, where he is told in hindsight, "Oh yeah, no, we never saw Karude and Oran ever again, but there was a pair of ace mech pilots known as the Demons." Who, cut us bloody swath through the remnants of like the Japanese government, and it's like, here's the thing. I don't need to see that, but I think because here's the thing. To be clear, right? Like I know, okay. So I know that holistically, on the whole point of the Dead Demon story is not how we got there, right? The story is about the relationship of these two characters and how no matter what happens to them, they will always find each other in the end, right? Like cosmically, Karude and Oran will always be there for each other, right? What is their phrase? "You are my absolute." Like,
yeah, like that last time we see them in this timeline, they say the big thing of, so long as we have each other, we're gonna live, or something like that.
So I totally understand thematically that is the narrative intention of Dead Demons. I am not here. My complaint is not, I wanted to see 4 episodes of like the post like crisis era where Karude and Oran become mech pilots. Like, I mean, okay, I would want to watch that, but I understand that's not the type of story Dead
Demons. Not necessary for the theme though, right?
Yeah. Right.
But what does bother me, like very much so, is like, so let's just get into it, right? So after Karude's dad basically finds out that Karude is dead, right? Because they say that, oh, there were a pair of ace mech pilots, and we see those mechs get obliterated by an orbital laser, right? And they later confirm that was Karude and Oran, right? That they were killed in the battle. And so Karude's dad, having nothing left for him in this world, meets Makoto and the girl and Oba, basically. And they're like, we can send you back. Like, we can use the same machine that sent Oran back in time. We can send you to another like timeline to, try and fix things, right? And the explanation being that, like, oh, we've known about this whole time, but none of us are going to use it because even though this world sucks, it's still our world. These are still our friends. This is our timeline, right? We can't abandon these people, right? Because it's a one-way trip, and it's a one-time, or not a one-time use, but it's only one person can use it at a time, right? So implication being like none of the people in that timeline can bring themselves to abandon, their
if you use it, then it's only you who leaves, basically.
Exactly,
right?
So, and Karude's dad, who has nothing.
Yeah, like you couldn't send 2 people back to the same timeline. Like it would have to be like you're going back to your own to start your own timeline, basically.
So, so they send Karude's dad back in time, and apparently by being a more present father and encouraging Karude to befriend Oran, we get the golden ending timeline, quote unquote, where Karude and Oran become friends, but don't go on a mass killing spree, nor do aliens come and like lead to a horrific genocide of 2 like intelligent species.
Right.
And apparently all that was required was that Karude's dad be at home more often. And we get into this whole so most of the last episode is new timeline. Let's just say, okay, like third timeline Karude and Oran, right? Like this is the third timeline where they are just like they're adults, they're young adults making their way through their careers, right? Karude becomes a manga editor once again for your friend and ours and mine, Kengo Harazawa, author of Under Ninja.
Right.
I continue to really love that gag. That it's fucking Kengo Harazawa.
Yes.
Like, anyways, of all people, right? The fucking Under Ninja guy.
Right.
Anyways. Oran works at SES, and it kind of gets into just like they are happy, right? Like their lives are not perfect, right? Nothing in life is perfect, but they are happy. They are friends. They're together. Like
just as they were able to find happiness in a doomed world, they are finding happiness in the world that is slightly less doomed.
Right. And the theme basically being no matter the state of the world, Karode and Oran will always be friends. And, you know, that's all nice and good. It's very heartwarming, etc., etc. This doesn't work for me because I'm one of those people, I do not fuck with multiverse / reincarnation as a replacement for a character.
Mm.
Like, that's not our Karode and Oran. Like,
Right.
Like, you can't just be, oh, don't worry, this Karode and Oran found happiness in the good timeline. That's not the pair of characters I watched for the last 18 episodes.
Right.
Like, that is a different set of the same characters. Like, you cannot do this whole, like, oh, well, Karode and Oran died as mech pilots, but don't worry, a different version of them found happiness. It's like, yes, different version, as in not the same. And I think that's kind of where the ending of DeDeDeDe Demons I really struggle with, is like, you're trying to give me emotional catharsis with two characters who look the same as the characters I grew to be like to like and be compelled by over the course of the story. But let us be clear, those are not the same two characters. And
Right.
so that's where DeDeDeDe Demons kind of rings hollow for me. Is like
right.
Yeah. So, it's like I feel like I'm being deprived of an emotional catharsis. Well, I think I could live with being intentionally deprived of an emotional catharsis for Karode and Oran, but then to try to give me one anyways with two characters wearing the skin of the two characters I liked, I think deeply bothers me. It feels like a cop-out.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying, and I do agree it feels like the ending is maybe a little too tidy, but I didn't really feel that way watching it, because one of the things I think I appreciated, we talked about Makoto and everybody staying back in that timeline, which I think was important to kind of, there's a thing when you have time travel and multiverse stuff where like you're going back in the past to save the world and like overwrite the previous bad ending. And I think they're trying to say here is the bad world and the worst world still exist, right? Like,
yeah.
And you're right. Those are not the girls that we know exactly, but, the ones that existed in the other world, had their time and did their thing. And it's not like that didn't happen. It's just that, these are different versions of, and different possibilities. And with the important thing, like you said, and, the real message is that, regardless of the circumstances, good or bad, that they were going to, if they're together, that they could be happy. And, you could extrapolate that to a bigger theme of, anybody.
You can find happiness no matter how shitty the world is.
So long as you're, with people that you care about and everything, you can get by, no matter what's going on. Right. So I understand why they did that to reinforce the theme. I do. And I'm cool with that. And I didn't feel cheated per se to the degree that you're getting to, G, I don't think. But I do feel like, I don't know, maybe that being the last thing that we see kind of makes that like feel like it's a nice, tidy, happy ending. When the way I'm looking at it, I don't necessarily think it's I'm still looking at that as like that's one possibility. And I did feel like there was, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, it did to me feel like something was still off, right?
I think
like I don't know if they were like, obviously that's a much better way to live your life than whatever happened in the previous timelines. So they're not saying that isn't like the best outcome, but I do think they were trying to make you feel like, okay, but that there's still things that are not right here. So I think there's some more nuance to it, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to, that I was feeling. But ultimately, what I think the author's intentions, if that matters, I think it is left to be kind of more open to interpretation. And
sure,
you can take the lesson you want out of it. But
sure,
yeah,
I got kind of weirded out by just like the realization that the big moment of emotional catharsis is for Karode's dad.
Yeah,
rather than any of the characters we give a shit about. right?
Yeah, I did think that was a little weird too. That like
because the implication is that effectively the entire show is him now watching the childhood of his child that he kind of ignored to do his work, right?
right, and like the guy that maybe has like a combined 20 minutes of screen time is
right, and like I think putting episode 0 where it was an attempt to give that moment more heft to it, right, but
yeah, because
I don't think it worked really.
Honestly, having not watched episode 0 and then getting to the last episode, I was like, wait, who is this guy again? I had to remind myself like who he even was.
Right. Like, I think for me, yeah, it's like, again, I fully own this, right? I think a lot of these feelings are also grounded in that, like, episode 0 is, I mean, it's still a fantastic, like, in media res introduction. Like, it is, like, sure, yeah. I remember watching it at the time and going, this is the coolest setup for a story I think I've seen in a little bit. Like, I'm already immediately invested in the stakes and setting.
Yeah, like, I understand why they did it,
and
right?
And the problem, though, is like, then Iro and I spent the next 16 episodes going, man, I can't wait to see, like, the steady collapse of, like, civic infrastructure as, like, Japan descends into, like, anarchy. And then it's like, it doesn't just happen.
That's not the story.
Right.
That's not the story they were telling, right?
It just goes boop, and then humanity ended, and we're back in episode 0. It's like, oh, okay. And we skip all of that.
And so it's like, here's the thing, right? Like, you can tell me, it's like, you know, well, gee, like, the bad future was never the point of the story. It's like, you still put it first. Like, you still put it at the start of the story. Like, I'm going to have assumptions about the narrative significance of setting up your story like that.
And so the message of no matter how bad the world is, you can find meaning in living your life then rings like slightly hollow, because we see none of that in the ruined future, only up to the moment of ruin, right. And so it's like, yeah, Makoto can say all he wants, like, we have our loved ones here, we don't want to leave because we found our own type of happiness here in this ruined world, and we just don't see that, though. It's like, well, I mean, okay.
Like, it's...
Well, again, I mean, there was a lot of things going on prior to, like, the actual thing exploding, though.
Yes.
Like, and I think a lot of that, and I kind of liked that because I feel like a lot of that felt very poignant in, you know, just
right.
Persons to
I'm
real
saying
world.
This is like I'm saying this is an expectation that was established by episode 0, right? That is perhaps a misguided attempt.
I will say, like, I do, like, I don't know. I do wish, like, someone here read the manga so I could grill them a little bit on it, because, like, the thing I'm kind of left with is, like, is this anime is this a weakness of the source material, or is this a weakness of the adaptation, right? Because in my mind, it's like, I think I don't like in it again, not knowing the source material. In my imagination, I feel like if we had an actual 18th episode, or you know, episode 0 plus 18th episode, if we had one more episode in the bad future, like. To give us a little bit more context of, like, how Makoto and Oba and such were living their lives in the ruined future, right? Like, again, to be clear, I do not need, like, and here's an explanation of the geopolitical situation. I don't need that. Yeah. What I mean is just one more episode of seeing the people we like and the people we grew to watch in this show living their lives post-disaster, right? Like, I think if I had a little bit more context there, a little bit more of, like, the real lived situation these people are going through, I think, as you say, Iro, then Makoto's statement of, like, but this is my world would hit a lot harder, I think.
And, like, what I was saying is, like, I mean, things were already kind of bad leading up to that. I mean, they weren't as bad, but, like, I mean, I don't feel like I needed any extra explanation on that for me personally.
Whereas, like, because the first thing we see is the ruined future with episode 0, like, we expect some sort of, I naturally expect a sort of, like, coming back to that with the thematic message in mind, right?
Yeah.
as
I mean,
opposed to it being merely a denouement, which is fine, right? Like, yeah.
Aqua did read the manga, and he confirmed for us that episode 0 does happen where it's supposed to chronologically in the manga, right?
Oh yeah,
so
that
wasn't
I believe.
We know that was an anime decision, right? So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, I felt pretty fine with what they did on the ending. I mean, it was, I don't know what else I would have wanted for them to do with it other than, okay, I mean, I would have been fine with a little extra, insight onto what was happening post
give us
up.
Give us the 6-episode Karode Oran mecha anime Gaiden.
Honestly, if it was like 5 minutes of them just doing something while they're waiting for the time machine to fire up or something, that would have been fine for me. Like I didn't really need much in that regard.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But I don't know. We can't.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys can't pretend you didn't watch episode 0 when it started, right? It is what it is, and like you said, that is how they presented it, and you watched it as they presented it, and you can only judge it that way. So like, it's fascinating to me how much of a difference that seems to make on the overall.
It is up there. It might be one of the most boneheaded decisions. Like, well, no, like obviously people have made worse creative decisions, but the disparity between the stupidity of the decision and how good the actual story is, because to be clear, Dead Demons is still like a very good story. Like I think even if I am personally not happy or I do not feel satisfied by its payoff, I think up to episode 16 or 15 or whatever at this point is like still a really compelling story about like two individuals trying to make the best of the world they live in. Like
here's an interesting question.
Okay.
If you just cut Kadode's dad out of this and just dropped episode 0 and episode 17, would that have been an improvement? I don't know the answer to this. I'm just throwing this out. I mean, I'm just throwing this out there.
Whew, man.
And you end with Makoto saying we're going to keep. Okay. We end finding out that they died as the mech pilots, and Makoto basically saying we're going to keep on fighting. That's the end point.
No, I think that would also be a little unsatisfying. Like if
that would come off as like kind of mean-spirited to me.
Yeah, right. Just like, Karode and Oran died on their way back to their home planet. Like, I don't know, not really. Yeah, I get it. I don't want to be like armchair like editor or whatever, but like I don't know. Just should not put episode 0 out, man. Sorry, that's all it is, right? That's really. I mean,
I'm working this out in real time here and thinking out loud, but like, because my kind of only thing I thought was weird is like, why was Kadode's dad so important at the end? And it's like, could that have been another character that did that? I don't know, but for me, I didn't really have. Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the ending. I thought it was good. Honestly, it's probably not the strongest year, but this might be an anime of the year contender for me.
I think it's most
if we start thinking about what other competitors there are this year, I think it's
in conversation in the top 10 for sure. Yes. Yeah. It and Thunderbolt Fantasy Season 4.
Well,
I'm calling my shot right now.
if we're penciling that one in, then maybe it's number 2.
In all seriousness, like I get to be clear, like I think I broadly still liked Dead Demons. Like I'm not here to be like, and the ending ruined it all. Like it did not. It certainly did not land for me. Like it definitely takes this from an easy like, I'm fighting for this in the top 10 to it'll be there somewhere, But I still liked it. I still think Karode and Oran's story up until the last like 2 episodes is quite compelling. I really did not think I'd love those 2 crazy kids so much. And I'm happy that they made it in one of these messed up worlds.
At least one out of 3 ain't bad, I guess.
1 out of 3, yes. Though you hear their voices at the very end of the last episode, and they do leave behind a copy of their universe, Isobayan, right? Because the whole joke is that like the huge punchline at the end of Dead Demons, right, is that Dead Demons is basically one long Doraemon pun.
Yep.
Right?
Because Karode and Oran, if you put their names together, you get Doraemon.
Right. And it's just like, see, like, every universe has its own cute alien futuristic mascot. And so
what
it's
a dumb note to end on, actually. Like,
yeah, right?
Yeah, that... Honestly, I think I immediately forgot that scene happened, but
well, the only reason I bring it up, right, because they make it a very pointed detail that in the third timeline, it's not Isobayan, it's a new like zucchini-based mascot, and so Isobayan is second timeline's Karode and Oran, leaving that behind, and so it's like, do they become like Time Lords or something? They just became one with the life stream. Like, I don't.
Isn't there? I thought there was a shot of them like vacuuming the mechs. Like,
they looked pretty fucking dead.
Okay,
well, because Oba...
Right.
It's been a little bit, but I do recall specifically when Karode's dad and Makoto meet Oba and the soldier who rescued Oba at the end of episode 15, I guess, 16. The soldier basically says to Makoto, I'm glad at least some of Oba's friends are still alive.
Okay, sure.
And then it cuts to the reveal that soldier recovered the remains of Karode and Oran's mechs.
Gotcha.
After they were blasted by the orbital laser.
Well,
which I think is hard confirmation they were killed. Sure, so, like, their spirits ascended?
Yeah, but then Makoto talks about, like, they're working on the time travel tech, but for now, we can just send you back, right?
Right, eventually they'll be able to send people and objects or whatever.
I sort of took that as a, like, eventually... we worked out enough of the time stuff to pull out Karode and Oran from the Sobayan timeline, and they can be happy looking at other worlds or some shit.
I guess so. Yeah.
I mean that's all whatever. But the bit with like the manga crossing over, I thought that was like some sort of like. That one spot happened to be like an interdimensional overlapping space or something like that, right? Isn't that what they implied? I don't remember. I've kind of blocked. I mean, that's none of that stuff was really that important.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, it didn't really detract much from that for me at all. Like I thought it was good, and I didn't really have a problem with the ending.
It's not bad.
No, certainly not bad.
Yeah.
And thus...
I would... Okay, well...
How many stars?
I can't go to 5. I kind of want to. I'm definitely in a 4 for me.
I think closer to a 3 for me. So
I'm strongly in a 4, and I feel like a few tweaks here and there could have got this to a 5 for me.
Well,
so
congratulations to summer 2024, the season of the 3 out of 5.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that one, I guess. Sure. But yeah.
All right.
Oof. Well, we made it. That's another one in the books.
Wait, what do you mean the new one's already started?
Yep. We got Anime Apocalypse currently happening. We're recording on the weekend. I can see the meteors falling from the sky outside my window. So,
yes, by the time you hear this, I think we'll have a number of first looks out.
I already have 2 posts out today, so yeah, that's a good segue into our housekeeping. So, go visit theglorioblog.com where you can see all of our first looks on new shows. We'll be pumping those out prior to our next podcast episode where we'll actually be talking about them. I'm sure there'll be things to talk about for sure. Although, we'll see. I've already had a few disappointments, but we'll get into that next time. Let that be a teaser for everybody to go look at the first looks. You can also follow us on the only place I'm currently posting really is Blue Sky. So at GLORIO Blog on Blue Sky. RIP co-host, which did shut down since we last spoke. But you can go check us out there. I've been posting things randomly here and there. And you can Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Podbean, Stitcher, and of course YouTube, where you can like, comment, subscribe, ring that notification bell, all those good things. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. We'll catch you over next time.